In this lesson, we are going to focus on formatting the HyperDoc. If you remember from the earlier lessons, we talked about the different tools that you can use for a HyperDoc. In this example, I'm going to be using Google Docs. Many of the same things I'm going to show you how to do will work the same way in whatever program you choose to use. So the first thing you always want to do is go ahead and rename your document. So I'm actually going to just call this Book Trailer HyperDoc. And if you remember in the previous lessons, we talked about how you might want to select a color scheme and make your HyperDoc visually appealing to your students. So one of the first things you can do is to go under File, Page Setup, and choose Page Color, and you could choose a color for the background of the whole entire page. So for this example, I'm just going to choose a really light gray. One of the other things I like to do is to change my margins. These are going to be defaulted to 1 inch each, and I go ahead and change them to 0.25 because this is not going to be a document that I print, and I want to maximize the use of my space inside the document. Once you have those selected, you can click on OK, and you can tell that I now have a light background for my HyperDoc. Most HyperDocs that you see are using a table format to organize the information for students to visit the different sections. So that is the next thing that we're going to do is inserting a table. So I'm going to go to Insert, I'm going to go to Table, and I'm going to make it a 2 by 5. We definitely need 2 columns. We may need more rows than that later, but we can add those as needed. So a 2 by 5 table. And that is just going to insert a plain generic table, excuse me, into your document, and we're going to start formatting it. So, excuse me, for the top part is where I want to actually put the name of my lesson. So in the top row of the table, I'm actually just going to type creating a book trailer for a novel. So that is the name of our lesson that we're doing today. Now, I want that to be stretched across and centered and look really pretty on my HyperDoc, so I need to do some formatting. So what you would want to do is highlight these 2 cells that are separated, right-click on those, and say Merge Cells. And that is going to make that one big long row for you instead of 2. I also want to change the font, so I'm going to highlight Creating a Book Trailer for a Novel. And I'm going to come up here to my font, and I'm going to choose something that may be a little more catchy than just Arial. I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm going to make it bold. And I'm going to go ahead and center that. So now, again, you can see it's already looking a little bit better than just plain text type there. So one of the other things I like to do is add color, again, to make it visually appealing to the kids as they're going through it. So I want to add a background color to this section right here. If you look up on here in your menu bar, you'll see the little paint bucket. If you click on that, that's the background color for that cell. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to make it this really dark blue. So I've picked, if you remember from the other lesson, a blue-red theme for the HyperDoc. So we've started that process, so I've picked blue. I also don't like the black font because it doesn't stand out very well next to the blue. So I'm going to highlight it again, and I'm going to change my font color to white. And now it really pops at the top of the document. I also think I might want this to look a little bit different, so I'm going to hit an Enter key there and make it look more like a heading than it did before. Okay, for the next part, we're ready to put our different sections of our HyperDoc in. So if you remember, the first part of a HyperDoc is the Engage section. So I'm going to type Engage. And this side of the table, I'm actually just going to type your task. And this is where we're going to explain to the students in every section what we actually want them to do. Sometimes that is going to be them actually maybe answering questions inside this Google Doc. And if you have shared that with them in Google Classroom, that shouldn't be a problem. Other times it's going to have them go out to a different website or to view other resources. But whatever you want the students to do, you're going to explain it there in your task. So we're going to go ahead and change the color again of these cells, and I'm going to make this red. It's a little too bright for me, so I'm going to change it to a little bit darker. Again, I want to kind of spice up the font a little bit, so I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger, and I'm going to bold them and center them. So for this particular lesson, I have found a movie trailer for the movie Up that I want the students to watch. And then we're going to talk about how that relates to a book trailer. If you remember from our earlier lessons, we discussed how the engage section is supposed to be your hook for your lesson. For this particular activity, I have found a movie trailer from the movie Up that I want the students to watch, and then I want them to answer some questions about that movie trailer. So what I'm going to do is go under the engage section, and I'm just going to type out what are we actually going to do in this section. So watch the movie trailer Up. Now I'm going to go get my link that I have for this movie trailer, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste it in. Now, you'll see sometimes when teachers find links for things on the internet and they want to share them with their students, they will just paste that link inside their document. And that's fine. It just doesn't look very appealing. It doesn't look like a website, especially if you have very, very, very long URLs. And there's a way to make that look a little bit neater. So I'm going to remove this URL. And I actually would like for the kids to actually be able to click on the words movie trailer. So I'm going to highlight those words, movie trailer. I'm going to come up here to my toolbar and I'm going to click insert link. And I'm going to paste that URL in there and I'm going to hit apply. And now that is actually a live link that students can click on and visit the movie trailer to watch. And again, that looks visually more appealing than having that big long URL listed there. I'm also going to add a picture there. So I found this picture online of the house floating away with the balloons. So I'm going to add it there as well. Typically, when I'm working on HyperDocs, I tend to make this first column a little smaller than the task column. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. So you'll notice that this one is smaller than this one. So for the task on this, I have a few questions that I want the students to be able to answer after watching the book trailer. So I'm going to add those here. And that is my engage section for the HyperDoc. Again, for this particular section, and the way that I've set this up, when the students get the document, they're going to have a version of it that they can edit, and they can actually answer these questions right here on the document. So now I'm going to go to the next section, which is Explore. And I'm going to put that in there. Again, I'm going to tell my students exactly what they're going to be doing in this section. So I'm going to put that in there real quick. And then I'm going to give them their task that I want them to do. So in this section, for this particular activity, after they've watched the movie trailer, they're going to actually go out and explore some book trailers on their own. And they're going to think about these points that we have already discussed in class about what makes a great book trailer. At this point, because I've already used all of my rows in my table, I would right click and say insert row below, and that gives me a brand new row to complete my HyperDoc. So I'm going to pause the video for just a second and go ahead and finish creating this HyperDoc. So now you can see that I have all of the different sections for the HyperDoc completed. On the left hand side again, we give an explanation of what's going to be done during that section. And then in the right column, we actually give them the task that we want the students to complete. Again, you want everything linked in this document so they don't have to go out and find stuff on their own. You want to be able to provide those rubrics that they need or any templates that they need. Right here in one single document. Again, at this point, you would take this HyperDoc and either A, share it with your students in view-only access so that they can have access to it and complete the assignments, or the better option, in my opinion, would be to assign it in Google Classroom and make a copy for every student, because at certain points in the one that we've created for an example, kids are actually answering questions on the Google Doc, so they would have to have edit rights to do that. So hope you enjoy making your own HyperDocs for your classroom.